I'm Ken Rockwell. Let's look at Nikon's newest 50mm f1.4 for their Z series of cameras. It's a great little lens. It has super optics. It's offshore to China. Everything's plastic except for the metal mount. My biggest complaint is, honestly, that it has no auto manual focus switch. That drives me up the wall. I have to set that in menus now or with a function button, which, to be honest, when you shoot as much as I do, which is every single day, that gets in my way. But let's first take a look at some of the pictures I can make with this. Here's a canary palm and lawn furniture. This is in April 2025. This is shot on my Z6 Mark III. It's at f6.3 at a 1/160th of a second at auto ISO 100. And again, if you'd like to download this file for yourself and see it in intimate detail, go to my website, kenrockwell.com. The specific link to this review is in my description of this video, or just use the search box at kenrockwell.com, and you can get right to the review and download all the files and see everything in far more detail than I could ever convey here in a short video. This is the interior of a convertible Bentley. It's shot at f11, handheld at a 15th at auto ISO 100. Here's a BMW R100 RS. This looks about 1978 maybe. I had a 1977 R100. In any case, beautiful bike. Shot here again at f11 to get some depth of field. Handheld at a 30th of a second at ISO 100. It has fantastic optics, but it's a cheap feeling mount. And I'm sorry, but people accept junk today for cameras as if they're disposable consumer electronics. I come from the days when cameras lasted a lifetime and people handed them down and the survivors argued over who got the camera. Autofocus speed is only moderate. It makes a quiet whining sound as a little motor in here operates. You're not going to hear it most of the time, but if you're someplace quiet, like my studio here, you will hear it motor in and out. Manual focus is fantastic. Half the lens is this manual focus ring. Nikon is the world leader in the manual focus performance, meaning that anytime you grab this ring, it's going to take over, focus manually. Even if you're in continuous autofocus mode, all the Nikon cameras and lenses from the Z series will just automatically shift to manual focus anytime you grab this ring, and it will stay wherever you set it. With Canon, I love Canon even more than Nikon, but with my Canon cameras, if I have set to autofocus continuous mode, and move the manual focus ring, while it may take over for manual focus for just a moment, as soon as I stop turning that ring, it goes back to focusing automatically, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. So Nikon rules on that. Although not having an autofocus manual focus switch does still drive me off the wall. Points off. There's no significant focus breathing, and that's when you focus from near to far. Does the image grow slightly? And this is only important if you're using this for cinema, in which case as two actors are talking between each other and you focus near and far, would the image grow or not? But it doesn't, which is really good. Bokeh is excellent at large apertures, and it gets neutral at smaller apertures. And here it is at a couple of different apertures. You'll see I'll stop down a bit, but bokeh looks great. And as always, if you want the softest backgrounds, shoot, of course, at f1.4, but get as close as possible to your subject. Most people think to forget that, but get as close as you can because you have to focus the lens closer, and then you throw the background more out of focus. Coma, which is points of light turning into weird little bat wing shapes in the corners at f1.4, that used to be a problem with old lenses back in the 70s. It was horrible. And that's why they had to invent things like the knocked lenses, which are spherical. But guess what? This lens also uses a spherical optics, has fantastic performance. I'd see very little coma at f1.4, probably about the same as the 58mm f1.2 knocked. So again, modern technology marches on. Distortion, hats off to Nikon. This lens has no visible distortion with or without electronic correction, which is a huge improvement over all of its SLR and DSLR 50mm f1.4 lenses. My website has some specific correction factors you could use if you really want to use it for scientific results. But the good news is, of course, it has less with the correction on in a Z6 Mark III. But even with uncorrected images, and if you're only shooting raw data and processing it into images later in software, even if your software does not incorporate any distortion correction, it'll look great. Ergonomics are great too, except for the lack of this switch. You got a big focus ring. You can program this ring to do whatever else you want. Honestly, I find this ring a very limited use because it has no clicks. Everything we said on a camera today goes in steps, be it white balance or exposure compensation, and not having clicks drives me off the wall. Fall off is minor. If you leave the vignette correction on, fall off is minor at 1.4, completely insignificant stop down. What's interesting is macro performance. Yeah, it's sharp, but the problem is it doesn't focus any closer than any other 50mm lens made in the past 50 years. It's like, why haven't they made that better? I don't know why. They should be able to, but they don't. At f1.4, the biggest problem is spherochromatism, which leads to color fringes on out-of-focus highlights. And of course, like every lens, when you stop it down to f8, it's ultra, ultra sharp. Mechanically, it's got a metal mount and glass, but the rest is all plastic. Do I like that? No, I do not. But too bad. And as I said, it is offshore to China. It is not made in Japan. It's not made in Thailand. It's not made in Taiwan. It's offshore to China. And what irks me is that's never advertised. It's never shared. It's like it's a big secret with them. They don't want to say that because, that's not a selling feature. Sharpness, yeah, it's super sharp, corner to corner at every aperture. Your biggest limitation is your vision as an artist. And if you stop it down to f16, f11, every lens gets softer due to diffraction. And that's not on the lens, that's on that's on God, who made the laws of the universe, and that's what they do. Spherochromatism, those weird color fringes. You'll notice at f1.4, real close here, you'll see some vivid blue fringes behind and some orange-red fringes ahead of the plane of perfect focus. And honestly, I'm not impressed by this either. It's not something that really most people bother worrying about. But if you do, gosh, a lot of lenses today are starting to correct for this. This is the last aberration we can't correct electronically and is significant for making real pictures. It's not that much better. But do you care? You probably didn't even know what spherochromatism was before I brought it up. This lens has no stabilization, but it does work remarkably well on a stabilized camera. On my Z5 Mark II, which has internal stabilization, I get 5 stops of real-world improvement. In other words, I only get tripod equivalent, perfect, flawless sharpness most of the time in a 60th of a second and never below that. But with the stabilization on the same camera, I can shoot at a half a second and most of the time get the same exact results as if I had locked it down on a rock-solid tripod. I'm very impressed. For sun stars, I get pretty good 18-point sun stars on brilliant points of light, but at the smaller apertures. And nope, doesn't work with any teleconverters. Why? Because you see this glass here. For the teleconverters to work, it needs a hole in the back of the lens, some airspace. Yeah, I'm going to touch it. See? I'm going to touch it. You need to have some airspace there for the teleconverter to get into, and this lens does not have that. And that's it. Great lens, great price. I'd certainly get this over the 50mm f1.2 just for practicality's sake, but honestly, we're all different. Personally, I love the 24-200 and shoot that for everything, even handheld at night, because my subjects hold still, so I don't need the faster speed to stop action, and I don't need the faster speed for soft backgrounds because I usually want everything in focus, but we're all different, and that's why Nikon makes so many different kinds of lenses. Again, see the full review, knock down, drag out every possible pixel and detail is all up at kenrockwell.com. So I thank you again for watching this video here at kenrockwell.tv. That jump scare.